When I was about 4, we were broken into twice. The first time, my grandfather and Mum had been grocery shopping. We arrived home and unlocked the front door, and one of the bedroom doors up the passageway slammed shut from the change in air pressure. My grandfather must have sensed something was up and ran up the passageway to the bathroom. The window was open, curtains swinging in the breeze, and nobody to be found. They figured he mustn't have been there long before they arrived home, as nothing in the house was touched or taken. The second time was 3 months later. My mum woke up to someone sitting on the bed with a knife in his hand at 3 a.m. Mum says she was completely petrified. She couldn't talk and couldn't move. She said he was mumbling, but she couldn't make out what he was saying. Then next-door neighbor's dog barked, and he just stood up and walked out. She then heard the back sliding door open. About a minute later, she grabbed the phone and called my grandfather. All she said was, "There was someone in the house." My granddad lived about 5 minutes away with my mum's 3 younger teenage brothers. In less than 5 minutes, they pulled into the driveway and scattered to surround and check our house. Every single door was unlocked, and the back door was open. There was nobody to be seen. Mum was a mess. There were big, muddy footprints in the laundry under the little window she left open for the cat. It took a few days for all the weird things this creep had done to be discovered. He had shredded a black negligee that was in the laundry basket. He also fed the cat and poured her a bowl of milk. The intruder even poured a whiskey out of the decanter in the living room and added ice and Coke to it. Somehow, he also had injected solder into the eggs in the fridge, ate the leftover roast meat out of the fridge, and cut up some catalogue that were sitting on the bench. He took a photo of the stovetop and another one of me sleeping on Mum's camera. He then left the camera on the table near my bed. Strangely, he also tipped lots of table salt into Mum's shoes. Nothing else was taken except for the knife that was missing from the kitchen block. The creep just did some really weird things. The cops came and got plenty of fingerprints, but whoever it was didn't have a record. That event messed my mum up for a lot of years. When I was 4, my parents worked long hours at a restaurant. They left my brother to babysit me until 10 p.m. He's 8 years older than me, so 12 years old at the time. Every night when my parents come home, they'll ring the bell and I'll run to greet them at the door with my brother. One day, the bell rings, and when I open the door, instead of my parents, it's 4 guys standing there. Apparently, they had been watching the house and knew the routine. They have guns and tell my brother and me to go downstairs and watch the TV as one of the guys stands guard over us. They let me sit there, but they tie my brother up using his Nintendo cords. I remember going to tug at the cords at my brother's wrist. I wasn't trying to untie him, it was more out of curiosity, and then the guy actually pointed his gun at me and told me to stop. When they finish going through the house, they tie us both to a beam and leave. After a little while, my brother wiggled out from the bindings and my parents came home. Cops were called and info was given to the police. They got a few pieces of jewelry and a camcorder. My mum had recently been making a lot of brownies. One day, she made a particular batch that was greater than any of the brownies she had made before. We ate a few, but for some reason didn't finish them, and we left them out on the kitchen stove. My mum, my sister, and I all went to sleep later that night while my dad was out at a meeting. My mum, knowing my dad would be home in just a few minutes, didn't think she needed to lock the doors before she went to sleep. Now we're all asleep, and my dad pulls into the driveway. The first thing he notices is that our garage is open, and his bike is standing outside. Then he turns and looks into the house. Standing in our kitchen is a man. My dad doesn't realize what's going on. At first, he assumes that one of his friends had come over, wanted to borrow his bike, but was waiting for him to come home so he could ask him. Then the man inside our house sprints out the back door. My dad starts to chase him, but stops. He knows we're inside, and he wants to make sure we're okay. So now we're all gathered downstairs, and we notice something. The intruder walked into our house, and the first thing he would have seen was the kitchen table. On the kitchen table were 3 wallets, all untouched. Then we look over and see the plate of brownies completely destroyed. The man who had broken into our house skipped over our valuables and went straight for the brownies. At the time, I was more disappointed by the fact that we didn't get to finish them than scared that we had kind of been robbed. Obviously, my mum and dad were pretty freaked out, and they bought an alarm system for the house. Also, my dad didn't sleep for a few days, but other than that, the only thing we lost was some brownies. One of my childhood homes had a balcony that was attached to both my mother's bedroom and mine. There were big glass doors in each of our rooms. Next to the balcony were 2 trees. I often used to climb up and down one of them from the balcony. One night, my brother and mother weren't home. I was about 13, reading in bed with a very dim reading light. I heard what sounded like something moving in one of the trees outside, but this didn't worry me as possums and bats are common in our area. Now I had thin curtains on the glass doors that separated my room and the balcony, and the doors faced out towards the street where street lamplight was always visible through my curtains. Shortly after hearing the tree rustling noises, I see a shadow slowly move past the doors, at which point I immediately turn off my reading light and freeze like a deer in headlights. The shadow is tall, so it wasn't a neighbor kid, and it wasn't my 5-foot mother. The person moved slowly, creeping as though they were trying to not be noticed. They wouldn't likely be able to see into my room, but I could see them thanks to the streetlights behind them. They moved past my doors out of sight. I sat there unable to move or even think about what to do other than be absolutely still. That is, until I heard another sound, the sound of someone trying to open a glass door. That's my mum's doors to the balcony. I didn't know if she had locked them or not, but I wasn't taking chances. I moved as quickly and as silently as I could to my bedroom door and locked it. I listened for what the person was doing now, and they were still jiggling the glass door handle. It sounded like the doors weren't opening. I felt relief as this person couldn't get in. Surely, all I had to do was wait for them to realize that, and then they would leave. I heard light footsteps move back along the balcony to my set of glass doors until I saw his shadow stop directly in front of them. Again, I froze. He couldn't see me, and he couldn't know I can see him, could he? I saw a shadow of a hand reach up to my door's handle, and my heart stopped. Had I actually locked those doors myself today? I was out there earlier. What if I forgot? The seconds leading up to him grabbing the handle felt like an eternity. But thankfully, when this person tried to open the door, it did not open. It was locked. I sighed such a sigh of relief I was worried he had heard it. After this, he began pacing the length of the balcony. I didn't have a mobile, and the landline was at the other end of the house, but I was scared to take my eyes off of them. I was silently crying and praying they would just leave. Then I heard him stop moving. He then said, "I could just break the glass, you know." Before I could even process this, I saw car headlights turn around the corner of my street and then stop at our property gate. My mum was home. The person on the balcony moved out of sight, and I heard a loud thump as they jumped off of it. When my mum came inside, I was hysterical and was barely coherent in telling her what happened. Eventually, I got the message across, and she called the police. They never found or caught anyone, but a neighbor reported a truck parked nearby that time. It matched the description of a truck which was reported recently for attempted child abductions near my school. I was in college and had the only room on the ground floor. I was bartending, so I got home at like 3 a.m. I'd just changed and gotten into bed when I heard someone fiddling with my window screen. I lived in a beach town and usually left my windows cracked open to hear the ocean as I fell asleep. I first thought it was one of my roommates who'd forgotten their keys or something, but I realized they would have called me first, so I flattened myself against the foot of my bed and the wall to look. It was a dude in a black hoodie with a box cutter, cutting my window screen. As he was lifting himself to enter, I jumped up onto my bed and kicked him as hard as I could in the chest. He fell onto the parking lot, hit a bike rack, and was knocked unconscious. I slammed my window shut, bolted it, and called the cops. By the time they showed, he was gone, but they found him 2 blocks away. His bag had zip ties and duct tape in it, and he had a record of sexual assault. The cops blamed me a bit for having my windows open. I kept my windows shut after that. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe to my channel for more horror stories. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.